Hi everybody, welcome to another video. This one, if you recognise the tank, it's because it's the same tank as I did the in the previous series. So what I'm going to do is try for a few different colour combinations on this one. So I'm just using this as a base, but it's the main reason for the video is the primer gun. Now those of you who watched the previous series in the tank, it started off an old dented tank I got, and we basically went through the whole process of finished it in a cellulose and a top coat. But those of you who will have seen that would also see a video on the FLG5, which is my normal primer gun. Now, to cut a long story short, I had a deal with my mate who took the FLG off me because I bought an F160, and I borrowed it back off him, which was part of the deal. I could borrow it if I wanted to do the this same tank on the last series of videos. So the idea was that I'd do the same tank again, and as I say, do a different combination of colours and use some 2K top coat and things like that, just to do some different things really. And I thought, well, I'm going to sand it back because it's cellulose underneath. I wanted to put a good primer base back on it so that I'd run very little chance of any reactions, because you know, I'm using solvent, and with solvent base coats you can get a reaction sometimes with cellulose, simply because there's quite a lot of solvent or thinners effectively in the base coat, so you can get a reaction. So what I wanted to do was sand it down and give it a good primer base, which is what I'm doing. But the main reason for the video, as I was going to say, is about the gun really. So I've used the FLG5. I've had the FLG5 for about 4 years, I suppose, and I've always used that as a you know, the gun for high build primer. So I wanted to use the same high build primer as I used before for this tank, but I thought, well, I've got the F160, I'll try that. So I did. I started using it, and to say it was a revelation is an understatement. I mean, it's such a nice gun to use, and you know, I originally thought by getting rid of the FLG5 that I'd made a mistake. When I saw the gun, you do the unboxing, I've done an unboxing video on it, and it didn't quite, to me it's not as well made, although it's a similar ilk, it's not as well made as the R150 stroke R160, particularly R150, which I think is the better made of the R150 160 anyway. But it didn't strike me as being quite as good, and I'm not quite sure why, but things just seemed a little bit more chunky, a little bit more agricultural, I suppose you would call it. So I was a little bit sceptical about using it. I hadn't used it for anything before. This was the first time, and as I say, I was really impressed with this gun. So much so that I think I've definitely made the right decision in buying this and getting rid of the FLG5. I mean, don't get me wrong, the FLG5 is a really good gun, and I thought it would probably be on par with this, but I think it just atomises better. It's got a huge fan. I mean, you'll see the little, if you look to the bottom right there on the table where I just do some test patterns really, just to see what I've set the gun up at, because as I say, I haven't used the gun before, and I also like doing it so that people who are watching the videos get an idea of the size of the fan you're using for the different things, because obviously you don't want a huge fan for fuel tanks and things like that, because you just cover too much of an area, and because they're not a flat surface, you don't want to be putting, you know, where the surface goes in, you would be getting much more orange peel than where the surface is raised, because the gun's just closer to it. So you don't want a huge fan, because you're not aiming to do huge portions of the tank at one time. So I set it up, as you can see, with it on the right hand side, and that is about 25% of the fan pattern. The fan pattern's absolutely huge. It's about 18.5 inches wide. It's as I say, it's an absolute cannon. Now it's a 1.9 not a 1.8, which is what the FLG, or I think you guys in the States call it an SBK. Yeah, I think it's SBK. So it's not, it's you know, it's what, 0.1 of a millimetre bigger tip. But I really don't think that is the only difference that made this gun feel so good, because to actually use it, the feel of it is not as good as the FLG. The FLG feels better in your hand, but the actual results was well impressed with this gun. Well impressed with this gun. You know, I pay for all my stuff. I've got no affiliation to anybody. Nobody sends me anything, so it's all, you know, I'm speaking having spent my own cash. But I can honestly say that if I was going to buy a new primer gun today, I would buy this rather than the FLG5. It just seems to have more control over the fan, which is unusual for an ANI, because the ANI's, the fan control isn't great compared to the Devilbiss. Although I know the FLG is a cheap Devilbiss. It's made in Brazil, I think, rather than in the UK. But it's still, you know, a highly reckoned gun, really. But just going back to priming again, you'll notice that I'm using a heat gun, and I've had a few people put various comments about things, you know, where they're trying to do stuff and they're getting some separation of paint and all sorts of things. And one of the things that I think people overlook sometimes is the temperature, because the temperature has a huge bearing on how much you can put on, and you know how quickly you can put your next coat on, and you know, without getting runs. Because you if you put too much on, there's no doubt about it, you will get runs. And if you put too little on, you get effectively dry spray areas, which is no good, because it just doesn't adhere to whatever you're spraying correctly. So you do need, temperature is quite a factor, really, and I think people overlook it sometimes. You know, if you've ever tried, I did a video of painting plastics once in the cold, and it was 5 degrees Celsius, which is about 40, is it? 40, about 38, I think, Fahrenheit. And it's so difficult. It really is difficult, because the paint wants to separate. It's a solvent base coat again. The paint wants to separate because it's just too cold. It's just too cold to do anything with. So you really do, you know, I know that's extreme, but you really do need to take account of the temperatures that you're using this stuff at, because you will get different results, and the warmer you can get it, the better, really. Even if it's not particularly warm on that day, if you can get the work, in this case it's a steel tank, so it actually holds its temperature quite well. But you can see the way this gun's laying it on. It was really, really nice, and it's the first time I've used it, so it's not a case of, you know, oh, well, I've got used to the gun and I know sort of like the sweet spot, etc. This is the first time I've used it, and I was well impressed with it. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's loads more to say, really. Just say thanks to all the subscribers. I know I rub it on a bit sometimes, but I find it better to talk rather than music, really, because I know when I'm watching other people's videos, if there's music on, if you like it, then it's fine, but a lot of the time you don't like the music, so I just prefer to hear them rub it on, really. So just a thanks to all the subscribers anyway. It does help, because it makes you think, oh well, you know, you do a bit more. I know it sounds a bit corny because everybody seems to say it, but it is the way it works. You sort of think to yourself, oh yeah, people like what I'm doing, so I'll try and do more. So that's the reason for doing it, really. Yeah, so I just one more thing to say as well is it takes the cup on this takes the same cup as the FLG or the Devilbiss GTI Pro Light, that sort of series. It's the same thread, so if you've got a GTI Pro Light or an FLG5 or any of the Devilbiss with the bigger thread on the cups, then the same cup will fit, so you don't need separate separate cups for the different guns. So it's just worth knowing, because I did try them and they don't leak or anything, so they work absolutely fine. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. As I say, it was just a quick, really, to say how good I found this gun. Anyway, as I say, thanks a lot. Cheers. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.